How you guys doing? My name is Patrick. I represent Midwest Vintage and Heavy Seven Hearts. I'm here with Kyra, and we're gonna ask her a few questions about her brand and a few other things about her life. And how was your childhood?
It was pretty cool. My youngest sister and I were closer in age, so we did a lot of like pretend play. We would go, we would be at the park pretending like we were survivalists, like stranded out on a desert
No.
island. There was even one time where we played an imaginary game as if we're trying to find the Lucky Charms at the end of the rainbow for St. Patrick's Day, because my dad had bought a big bag of like those gold chocolate coins.
Yep.
And so we had him hide them around, and we were pretending like we were on a scavenger hunt for the Lucky Charms. It was hilarious.
So did you play sports growing up?
Did I? Kinda. It was like on and off. I played basketball for a little bit.
Okay.
No. What else did I play? I played volleyball in middle school. Really, I was just dancing.
Okay.
I was just dancing a whole lot. I played some sports. I did a little track. Hated running. Volleyball was cool. I just wasn't as committed to that as I was as dance.
What were you known for in high school?
I honestly don't know. It's funny. I was talking to one of my friends, and sometimes we'll like reminisce and go down memory lane. They're like, "Oh, Kyra, do you remember this?" I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I can't remember that. But I would say, if I had to say, in hindsight, I would say being on the dance team was probably something I was most known for, because I was doing that quite a bit. I joined the dance team my freshman year of high school, and at that time it was a really big thing to join the varsity team as a freshman.
Okay.
So I guess that would be what I was known for.
Did you have any hobbies?
Dancing.
Okay.
I danced a whole lot. So I was on the dance team, and then I was taking private classes at a local studio in Sun Prairie. So I was doing that most of the time in high school. Well, and then I also played orchestra. I forgot about that.
What dream jobs did you have?
So around like the age of 6, I wanted to be a firefighter, oddly enough. I don't know why. I thought it was just super cool. The big red truck, and then the idea of fighting fires. And then at another point, I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do, so I was just kind of doing my day-to-day things. I know once I graduated high school, I was dead set on, I'm going to be a neurosurgeon. That's what I'm going to do.
So when growing up, we all have that person that we like really admire to where we want to be like them. Who was that for you?
I feel like my admiration for folks happens in waves, because I get inspired by so many different things. I would say recently I'm more so inspired around the concepts of like connection and disconnection, honestly. I'm also inspired by just abstracting some of those like literal things. But I would say over time, of course, my family is some of the folks that I look up to, because they've been through so much and they provide me with a lot of insight. They know a lot, so I really lean on to them. But as far as like my dancing journey, I really, really, really love Paris Goebel and her choreographic approach. It's so good. It's good, not even good. It's great because she has a level of detail and the simplicity of movement, which is so powerful to me. And she balances like the feminine and masculine energy really, really well. And that's something that not a lot of people can do, honestly. So I admire her movement. And then as far as, just being like the influence of KLJ, I was reflecting on my experiences in undergrad in particular, and the influence that Katherine Dunham and like Pearl Primus had on dance history. So those are two, I would say, historical figures that I really aligned with the most when I'm making decisions or thinking about like, what kind of stamp do I want to make on the community, whether it's local, national, geographical, global.
So why did you choose UW Stevens Point?
Funny question, because I was dead set on going to North Carolina A&T. I want to do an HBCU experience.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, I don't know if you can put this here, but I'm sick of these white people. I want to be around, because I'm not used to being around mass groups of black folks, aside from like family functions or like, I don't know, if we go into the city every so often. So I was like, I need that experience. Been around these white people too dang long. But that didn't happen because money is a big factor. And they also didn't have the program that I wanted to go into. They didn't have like biochemistry. And then the dance program that they had wasn't accredited, unfortunately. So, and then I looked at Twin Cities for a little bit. That was honestly my number one choice after I decided I wasn't going to North Carolina A&T. But I got waitlisted there, and so oddly enough, I don't know if you remember the Multicultural Leadership Conference. I got a little mail letter in the mail saying like, oh, we're inviting you to this conference. It's a 4-day weekend. I'm thinking I'm getting out of school. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go. I get to skip class on Friday and Monday. Whole time we didn't have class anyway because there were parent-teacher conferences, and it was I think Halloween. So I didn't really miss out on school, but I went there and I had a really good time. It felt like a home away from home. I got to meet new people, and I still got that majority black and brown experience. Even though it was on a smaller scale, I still felt like, oh, this school will provide me this sense of like cultural diversity that I'm looking for. And then I also know people prior to going, which was a plus. And knowing some of the faculty that worked there just felt natural, and it was cheap. It was cost effective. 10 out of 10.
After college, did you go into something within your major, or did you end up doing something outside of your major?
So I originally went into Point with a biochemistry major because I wanted to be a brain surgeon. I was like, I'm gonna do this, it's gonna be fun, I love the brain. But chemistry and I didn't have a positive relationship, so I had to take those 2 classes over and over again. I was like, you know what? Do something you're good at. Granted, I still love science, I still love the brain, so I picked psychology and dance. And so that's how I kind of navigated the rest of my undergrad experience. So I completed that in 4.5 years, which I pat myself on the back for.
So like, while being in Stevens Point, you were super involved. Was any of the things that you were doing there, being like the extracurriculums, did it apply to like after college? Because being like, did you use your degree, or like did you do anything that you were doing in college now?
I really do. I know that my experiences in undergrad set me up for where I'm at right now, whether it was intentional or unintentional. Specifically, I'm thinking about the sorority I'm a part of, Sigma Delta Rho. I feel like there's a trend happening in my life where I'm like, I'm not doing that. I did not want to join Greek life whatsoever, but it was one way that I could connect with folks. It also gave me an opportunity to know what blackness looked like on a spectrum, because we as black folks are not monolithic. So there was diversity within our blackness that I really, really liked. Like, I didn't have to be one particular black woman in that space. And so I connected with them on that, and just not only being able to explore my own identity, but I was able to go to conferences and learn my leadership style. I was able to have like these roles on like, how do I manage a team of people? Because people are hard to manage. People are difficult to manage. So I got those skills doing that. And I even learned how to build relationships outside of the organization, and learning how to connect with people on a professional level, how to negotiate my needs in spaces. And even within my programs, granted, I would say less likely the psychology program, because it was just going to class and doing your thing. But in the dance program, I had the opportunity to grow on how I'm advocating for myself, because it was a white dominant space. Granted, they were open to hearing my feedback, but also still needed areas of growth. So just even being the sole black person in that space, unfortunately, it was isolating, but it allowed me, the sorority space allowed me agency to know who I am and how to talk for myself, and sometimes by myself when other folks aren't around. So I definitely use those like softer skills, and then obviously the things that I learned, I'm applying it to my dance company. And then for the psychology route, I'll be graduating in May, and I'll be a family therapist. So I'm excited.
All right, tell us a little bit about that, being a family therapist. Like, what made you want to do that?
Ooh, it's like a double whammy. So I feel like life naturally pushed me in that direction. And my experiences naturally pushed me in that direction. So oftentimes I would find people just telling me their life story unsolicitedly in public. So clearly I have a very open listening spirit, but also I knew with the psychology degree, it's like, wow, what can I do?
Yep.
You know, there are lots of jobs I could have done with psychology, but counseling and therapy was one thing that I liked because I had an experience where I was kind of working as a social worker in undergrad.
Yeah.
I was doing CPS work. CPS work is vastly different from therapy. Like, even though similar schooling, similar scopes, the approach is vastly different. And I had one client, I won't necessarily tell our business, but I had one client and I just kept asking myself, like, how did you get here? Like, what? There's something else happening versus me just telling you need to do X, Y, and Z. So after having that realization, and I got cussed out way too many times for my liking from clients telling me, you don't know anything. Like, I probably don't. I don't want to be in this position anymore. I would just rather help you through your mental, help you figure out, like, why are these things happening? What steps can I take versus that other approach? Okay, no thanks. So that's honestly the big shift for me, is like, I actually just want to do therapy for folks. I want to help them figure out where they need to go. And I was just curious. I'm like, dang, I wonder why you do that.
So with families, like, and trying to help them, like, what is your best way to approach it? Being like, a lot of times with our community, it's like, it's so much trauma there, and there's so much that's going on that you may not see physically. So how do you approach that situation when there may be so much going on, but you really want to be helpful?
You might not like this answer, but it really depends. It depends on so many things, because each family unit is different. So with family therapy, well, I'll also tell you this, each therapist approaches therapy differently. So it really just depends. I know for me, what I'm learning about myself as a mental health professional is I like to see the system of family, or like, how does the family function as a whole? And then of course each person comes with their own individual parts that contribute to that family whole. So that's kind of like the approach. It almost feels like a puzzle piece, for lack of a better word. Knowing, like, okay, this is what's on this puzzle piece, this is what's on this puzzle piece, and this is how those pieces come together or don't come together. So
how important was it for you to have the 2-parent home growing up?
You know, that's a question I sometimes don't know how to answer, because, you know, there are pros and cons to all things, right? I do appreciate that I had a 2-parent household, because I do think having both of my parents influenced me in different ways. But I also don't know what it's like to not have a 2-parent home, so I don't necessarily have too much to compare to. And I don't know. That's a really good question. Yeah, I mean, I know for me, because I don't know what it's like to not have a 2-parent home, what I appreciate in my parents is that although they're one unit, one band, one sound, they are each other's ride or dies. And I'm like, dang, y'all ganging up on me? No, I'm kidding. I love them to death. But I do appreciate the perspective, like just having two perspectives, like a male perspective and a woman perspective. It helps me think about things and change my mindset. And I think too, because they have similar yet different raisings, I get lots of input, lots of information on like who I am, how I am. So yeah.
With you loving dance, what made you make it a business?
Well. Honestly, so I went the nonprofit route over
Yeah.
the business route because I know dance is pricey and it could be vastly more accessible for people, especially Black and brown folks.
Yeah.
Growing up for me, dance was expensive. I even took class by myself. One, because it was cheaper, and two, I just didn't feel comfortable being the only Black person in the space. And they tried to put me in classes with kids 5 years younger than me. I wasn't having it. I was like, I'll take class by myself. But making it a nonprofit or just like a nonprofit business was something that kind of just fell into place, you know? I don't really have a clear answer for that. I think it just fell into place, you know?
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to make dance accessible, and one way to make that accessible is by making it a nonprofit so we can get donors, we can get grants, and don't necessarily. I'm also not one who is looking for the money out of it.
Yeah.
So I felt like being a nonprofit was one way to speak to that.
Yeah.
Like, of course, I would love to make a living and be sustainable and live a healthy, proactive life, but money for me is not the end goal. It's money for everyone, or whether that's, wow, my kid gets to take dance class for free for the next 5 years because we have enough funding, or whether that's, wow, these adults can thrive and be professional dancers in the Madison area and not have to worry about income. So, yeah.
How does dance help you just get through life?
Ooh, so many things. So, for me, dance, I'm not gonna say the cliche, dance is therapy, but what I've really been thinking about recently is that dance requires you to be present, like 100% present.
Yeah.
And as soon as you're not present, you're not in your movement. And so dance and movement is a practice of being present. It's a practice of like meditation and just also knowing who we are as people, because communication is nonverbal, right?
Yeah.
I could be talking to you right now, but look like this.
Yeah.
You'd be like, wow, she's really uncomfortable. So I also take that perspective too, like moving our bodies is a part of how we're communicating with one another.
Yeah.
So why not use that as a medium if I don't know what's going on in my head mentally to like facilitate what I'm feeling physically, and practicing being present and maintaining mental health. And I also think dance is a way to explore identity and your own, truth be told, like who you are in different spaces. And I think of dance as ways, like we have math and science and literature, right, of like knowing, that's the information we know, but art and dance and music and movement is how we interact with what we know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you think people respect it? Because as being like a profession, like
Mm-hmm.
there's always like a cap to like art in a way.
My candid answer, no.
Okay.
My very like, no. Because sometimes, right, it's like, oh, you're a dancer? Oh, well, can you just do something for me real fast?
Yeah.
It's like, this takes time. It takes a process. Not
Yeah.
only do I have to come up with a concept, I then have to choreograph my movement, which could take an hour, or it could take a week.
Yeah.
It could take a month, depending on like how big the project is. And it's like, well, do you want me to make a dance for 1 minute or 10 minutes? That also takes a lot of time. Then you have to think about costumes. You have to think, well, how many people do I want in this dance? Are they available for this? Are they available to perform? And then traveling. It's just so many things that go into it. That, you know, it reminds me of, dang, what's the metaphor I'm thinking of? It's like people see the final product and they're like, that's so great, so easy.
Yeah.
Okay, let me give you a list of things that happen so that this can look so great and so easy, all for this 1 minute performance.
Yeah.
It's like 15 hours of prep work that go into 1 minute of that execution or that performance or that video. Yeah. So I get it. It's fun. It's entertaining. And sometimes I think entertainment because it makes people feel so good. They want more of it, and so it feels easily accessible. But there are steps that have to be taken to get to that point.
Yeah. So, what is the pros and cons of being a dancer, being a business owner, and also being a therapist? And that's a big little lumped up situation, but
question.
How do you multitask all those things?
People ask me that a lot too, and I don't want to say I don't know, because I do know, but I just do it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just one of those things where I can't stop and overthink things. I just have to do it. I just have to get into it, and then I learn along the way. There are some things, of course, that take prep and planning, but that's really how I manage all three of those big things.
Is there any pros and cons? Because like you're running a business.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yep,
Yeah.
and a brand too.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to all of it. I'll start with the cons because I like to end on a high note. Some of the cons to maybe being a mental health professional, you really have to dive into yourself and make sure you're taking care of yourself, and that can be hard when you're going through things and then the person you're supporting is also going through similar things. That's a tough space to navigate, because we're people at the end of the day.
Yeah.
We are not perfect people, but we're people and we experience things, and our clients are experiencing things. So I think I wouldn't necessarily say it's a con. I would say some of the areas of growth for that profession in particular is that also an area of growth is that, at least in the Madison area, we need more Black therapists. So I would say that's one area of growth that I'm noticing within myself. As far as running the business, an area of growth or a con is funding. Honestly, there are so many barriers for not only being a Black person running a business or a nonprofit, then there's the extra barrier of being a Black woman running a nonprofit, and then there's the added barrier of the people we serve. Sometimes people don't necessarily want to give or donate to those causes, or I have to do extra steps just to prove that I am handling things properly. There's just a lot of barriers that I have to get through. Another limitation or another area of growth is that since I am newer, I'm three years old now. That's so funny to say. I'm 3 years old. I'm 3 years old now, so the expectations increase, but the resources don't always increase with the expectations. And having to be the front desk or the person, you know, handling customer representation, and then being the videographer, the photographer, the dance instructor, the manager, media marketing, the website designer, the accountant, HR. That is one of my biggest limitations. So there's only so much I can do in all those capacities. Granted, I'm doing pretty good, but you know, there's limit because I'm filling so many hats. So that's one area of growth for me. Would love to provide more opportunities for folks to dive into their field at the company. But again, that takes funding. And then as far as a dancer, I would say in conjunction with running a business and being a dancer, one of the areas of growth that I'm noticing for me right now is because I'm running this nonprofit, this business, most of my time goes toward the administrative work and less toward like my own artistry, my own dancer development. I'm like, dang, do I even know how to dance anymore? Which I do, but having to carve out that extra time and say like, I need to sit down, I need to dance, I need to train, I need to work on my craft so that I can continue to grow in all the areas that I'm in. And then also a limitation is having other people recognize that is a part of my job. Like me dancing is a part of my job. Even though it's fun, it's fulfilling, I love to do it, I have to do it in order to keep growing in the company. And you know, so it's one of those like, but The pros to dancing, it's such a good time. I really do like it. I do it everywhere, anywhere, anytime, in the grocery store, outside. Sometimes when I'm just standing by the car, I do it everywhere. So I just inherently love dance. I love movement. Let me put that in particular. Movement. I like to move, as you can tell. I'm talking with my hands.
Yes, yes.
I love to move. So that's obviously a pro. And I love that I get to dance and move with people, which is fantastic. I get to learn from other folks constantly in the business realm. I do get to work for myself, which is pretty nice.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I get to set the schedule. Granted, it's a busy schedule, but I get to set the schedule. I also love just being a beacon of opportunity for folks. And one of my goals is to have the company live well beyond me, whether that means I move or, Lord forbid, I pass away anytime soon. But I would love for it to be sustainable, where it's past me and the vision and the mission of it sustained past me and forever and ever and ever.
How do you deal with the stigma of therapy within the Black community?
Lots of, there is a lot of stigma.
Because people don't like telling their business.
They do not, and I mean, for lots of reasons, rightfully so, right?
Yep.
I mean, I even tell some of my clients, like, I'm a complete stranger to you.
Yep.
And now you're spilling your guts out to me. That's a big, big deal.
Yep.
But I think letting folks know, like, what is therapy? Because sometimes we have these ideas of what therapy is and isn't based off of TV.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
So just informing people of, like, what is therapy, or even how I do therapy. Because like I said earlier, therapy will look different with a different clinician or a different therapist. So having people ask questions, encouraging them to get curious about their own treatment, like, what is this? How does this work? I think just more education on what is therapy, what therapy isn't as well, because sometimes people view therapy as like a Band-Aid or like the doctor's office. Like, oh, I'm gonna come in, you're gonna give me these things, and it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm here to support you, but most of the work in therapy is for you, so you got to put the work in to get your own outcome.
Just listening to you, you sound like a very busy woman.
Yeah.
And so with that, and you're like very ambitious.
Mm-hmm.
So is there anything that you're working on or that you have that you're planning on doing in the next 2 years?
Oh, yes. There's lots of things without giving away too much stuff. So I know the company is going to grow. So I'm always preparing and planning for what growth in KLJ movement will look like, feel like, and sound like. The next 2 years, I would love to relocate to a newer space, something that will provide more services. In the next 2 years, of course, I would have been graduated. I want to get my full licensure with the state of Wisconsin. For particularly, the license is LMFT. So when I graduate and get my training license, I'll be an MFT, which is a marriage and family therapist. And then the LMFT is like the legal license in the state of Wisconsin. So that'll happen within the next 2 years. And then honestly, I've stopped. I plan, but I don't plan in detail, because as life has shown me time and time again, the detour and how we get to those goals can look vastly different. So like, I know I have these big milestones that I want to achieve in terms of like the when and the how. I'm really flexible on, because I know it'll look different.
Yeah.
Right? Like, of course I would love to move to a bigger space in the next 2 years. It could happen in 5 years, or it could happen in the next few months, and I just have to be prepared for it. Like,
How can supporters really help you achieve your mission?
Great question. Transparently, funding.
Yeah, no.
Funding, that's going to support the mission the most, because once the funding increases, I'll be able to provide more job opportunities for folks. I'll be able to provide more scholarships for dancers to attend. I'll be able to send people out to the community more to make dance more accessible, especially for older adults who can't necessarily come to a dance class, once a week. Or I'll be able to send people out into the schools to do whatever programming they'll need. I'll just be able to do more work and provide more opportunities for people. That's honestly the biggest way people can support. I just think support can show up many different ways. I would say that's the biggest way somebody can support me. But support also looks like, hey, someone that's looking to dance, send them our information. Or you want to volunteer for an event that we're having, or you want to volunteer to fundraise. You might not necessarily be able to donate monetarily. Is that a word? Yeah. May not be able to donate the coins, but if you want to donate your time so that we can get the coins, or if you want to, I don't know, be a volunteer at one of our community engagements that we have. So.
This video is sponsored by Heavy 7 Hearts. Everything is one of one or exclusive. Our mission is to change the world one trend at a time. If you go to our website, you will see Proud to Pay. This item is for all of our customers that want to support us in our mission. Thank you guys, and we appreciate you. Just knowing you a little bit, in the last year or so, unfortunately, you went through a very life-changing experience. And I just want to know, how did you deal with that, and how did you find out?
Yeah, so I'll go with the how did I find out first.
There you go.
So ironically enough, so leading up to that, I was having a lot of home invasion dreams, and I was like, Mom, what's going on? I keep having this dream about somebody invading my home. So that was one kind of and something told me Kyra, you need to write these dreams down. So I would, every time I would have them, I'd write them down. I had them for at least 3 months, right? Yeah, from December to February, March-ish. And then also at that time though, I was obviously running KOJ Movement, still doing all my classes for grad school. I was working a job at that time, but I quit top of the year because I was like, I can't do that no more. And so I had a few obligations that day. So it was March 19th. I got booked to choreograph a piece for a studio in Baraboo. Shout out to them because I love them. So I had to be there for at least 4 to 5 hours. So I did that, right? I was teaching, but I was feeling like a big, huge pain in my lower abdomen for at least a good 2 months now. But I just thought, this is a pulled muscle. It'll go away. I would ice it. I would roll on it, all that stuff. And so I get to my company rehearsal, which was immediately right after the 4 to 5 hours of choreographing and teaching. We had our company rehearsal because we had a big show coming up, and that was planned for April. So in rehearsal, right in the middle of rehearsal, I feel like this big, huge, pop, snap, crackle, pop in my lower abdomen. I couldn't walk. I could barely talk. I was in so much pain. And everyone's like, Kyra, are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, I'll be fine. Knowing damn well I was not okay. But we had to get the show done. We had less than a month left. We had 3 more pieces to learn. So I was like, we have to get this done. So I'm trying to choreograph while not being able to move. I'm pulling an Abby Lee, sitting from the chair, talking about some do a tendu to an arabesque. And one of my dear company members, she said, Kyra, you don't need to do this. I'm like, yes, I do. She's like, you're gonna go to the hospital because you are not okay. So they basically had to drag me into the car because I'm like, we have to finish the rehearsal, but I was clearly not in the condition. So my sister came and got me to go to the hospital. From talking with other friends, I had already figured something was going on, but I didn't necessarily think it was going to be cancer nonetheless. So as I'm at the doctor, new information keeps coming up. So it just gradually got presented to me. So I knew eventually I'd have to get my ovary removed because there was a mass the size of a grapefruit wrapped around my ovary. And And so I was like, well, down an ovary. Even though I'm talking so candidly about it now, in the moment it was very different. And so I knew I had to get that removed, but then they didn't know if it was malignant or not, so I wouldn't know that until post-operation. And so that's when I found out post-operation. Even though my doctor was dropping the C word quite heavily, she just kept saying, well, cancer could be kid. I'm like, all right, girl, I have a feeling it might be that. So that's how I found out. It would happen all in 48 hours because they wanted to get me in immediately. But the funny thing is, it's not really funny, but the funny thing is I was so hungry. I did not eat. I'm thinking to myself, I should have ate while I was in the car going to the hospital. I didn't eat from March 19th to March 21st. I was hungry. Oh, all three of my sisters, including my dad, when we are hungry, we are not nice. I needed food. I even asked him to push my surgery back so I could at least eat a little something. So yeah.
So with having something as traumatic as that, did it affect the business? Did it affect you being able to do what you love to do?
It has affected everything, honestly. So it happened right in the middle, not only of the adult company performance season, but right when I was teaching all the kids and their show was coming up. So I had to rely on my 2 dance instructors to pull my weight heavily. They had to teach, and then I had to make sure, bills were still getting paid, which was also hard because I'm like, how are we going to maintain the bills while I'm gone? Because I'm, of course, I'm doing all the things. I'm maintaining donors, trying to get funding. Like, I couldn't write grants. I literally had to sit in my house for months on months. So I really had to lean into my community, my village. They were, of course, ever so willing to do so. So that made it a lot easier. But, I wasn't able to do literally anything. Because, sometimes when, you're going through a procedure, you could potentially work on things from your laptop. I couldn't do that. So I had to rely on them a lot, making sure all my ducks were in a row while grieving and being sad and physically not being well. And I forgot the other part of your question, but I really just had to lean on my dance instructors, my family, most importantly, my friends and other folks that really did care, not only just about me, but about the company.
What skills have helped you become successful in life?
That's a good question. I feel like everyone has the ability to develop skills. For me, what drives what I think success means is my intention. Because even though impact and intention are 2 different things, I really try to be intentional about not only my needs, but other people's needs, and just being very genuine in the stuff that I do. And even if someone takes what my intentions are, or if they're like, if they think my intentions aren't pure or not genuine, I'm also open to feedback. To learn more, because I'm no perfect human. Don't try to pretend to be whatsoever. And I also rely heavily on my spirituality to keep me grounded. I think for me, that's what supports me through those tribulations and the triumphs.
How would you describe your dancing style?
Ooh, great question. I've been trying to figure this out. I think I do a little bit of everything. I tell people I could do a little bit of everything if you give me some time. But my core, main home base, modern dance, jazz, hip hop, ballet. I clump those up together, and that's what you'll get.
Okay. Have you been able to make any connections with your dancing or your business?
Yeah, so many connections. Some connections I made prior to opening the company, just from working at a local organization in Madison. So many. You want me to list them all?
No, I'm just saying, is there any that like was like, I dance for this company, or I work for this company, or I've been able to go here because of dance?
I know for this year, because last year I was able to dance in Milwaukee for the YWCA Gala Awards ceremony, which was super cool. And I did that solo dolo. I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna do it.
Yep.
Might as well. Granted, I know some people in the Milwaukee dance community, but we're not like super duper close. But we know each other. We say hey.
Yep.
So I just kind of did that off a whim. I was like, might as well. So I think that having the mindset of like, I'm just gonna do it, and like have no expectations. Like I'm not expecting to be picked all the time, or I'm not expecting to be like the best in the room, but I'm just gonna do it because why not? You know, why not put yourself out there? So that opportunity continues to have me connected to folks out there. And so I don't know if you know Frank Gaston, but he's from Milwaukee.
Okay.
He's a really big choreographer, danced with Michael Jackson, Beyonce, all those folks.
Okay.
He is a character, and I was able to stay in some sort of contact with like the people that work for him, so that he offered a class in Milwaukee to take class with Chris Grant, which is Beyonce's current choreographer. So I'm like, this is so cool. Like I wasn't necessarily anticipating to, you know, have that opportunity, but because I'm like, I'm just gonna do it and be myself and show up, and if I look crazy, I look crazy. If I fall, I fall. But just putting myself in spaces and not judging myself in those spaces, or not having expectations of what I needed out of that, has allowed me to facilitate different relationships and different opportunities that I could also then share with other people. Because even though I did the Gala Awards with myself last year, then I was like, wow, I'm connected to this opportunity. Now I can bring people with me, and I was able to bring at least 3 of my company members to that class with me.
Is there a Madison dancing culture?
Kinda. There's a little bit of a dance culture in Madison. Even though I feel like I'm fresh in it. So once I graduated, I was dancing at Barrio Dance Studio for a little bit and taught there for a bit. I want to say 2 years. I was trying to figure out my timeline the other day because I was trying to put it on my resume. I was like, how long was it? I think it was like 2 years I was dancing there. So I'm familiar with some of the dance community. I know it just looks different because there's a lot of white people that live here. So there's lots of modern dance in the city. There's lots of ballet in the city. There's also lots of dance studios in the city. That's a really, really big influence of the dance culture. And they're really heavy in the competition. Myself and KLJ Movement, no competition. We don't do competition. But we put on performances. Because one of the reasons why I wanted to add performance to the company is because nobody taught me how to perform. They're just like, get out there, dance. I'm like, what does that even look like? How do I use my face? Like, which direction do I face? So my main focus is performance and less competition. Although competition does curate different experience that is beneficial. But so there's, at least the companies I know, there's Madison Contemporary, there's Madison Ballet, there's Synergy, is it Synergy? There's a few other groups. There's the Isthmus Dance Collective. I know there's the Dynamic Bachelorettes, and I know they just did a collegiate team. Thinking like a mixture of adult and kid led. There's
Okay.
I don't know if that is.
Okay.
I don't know if that was concise. So I know of a lot of folks in the dance community in terms of like what the vibe is.
Okay.
I don't know. I'd be kind of vibing out.
How can people find you on the internet?
Oh, KLJmovement.org. That, or on Instagram is klj.movement. Similar to Facebook, you can find us there. You can find my dance Instagram at KWordDance. Yeah, Google.
Okay.
Google. Or you can, I mean, you could come by the space too. It's in Monona, 320 West Broadway, Sweetie. If you ever been to Waypoint, where you got to pass us to get to Waypoint, but we are closed for the next 2 weeks, so don't show up.
If there is anything that you could change about the dance community, what would it be?
Anything I could change about the dance community, what would it be?
Or even the therapy community?
I don't know. I think for me, I just really want, I guess it's not necessarily about the dance community. I want Madison, or not even just Madison, worldwide, but if I'm thinking Madison, I want people to really increase their understanding of dance and the arts in a way that adds value to it, because art is so valuable to everything we do. And I know sometimes we think of art as like an extracurricular or something on the side, but art is just as important as math. It's just as important as reading, because like I said earlier, we have math, reading, and science to know what we know, but how we interact with what we know is really heavily influenced on art. Our dance is math. We use 8 counts. That's a time. It's a rhythm. That's physics. We use physics. We use kinesiology, right? So it's like, how are we using those concepts of science and math and interacting with it? And art is really, really important. I really would love to see Madison add more value to movement and arts and dance, because we really do put a lot of work into what we do, no matter if it's a dance studio or a company, or if it's a hip-hop team or a ballet company or a majorette team. Like, we do so much work, and that deserves to be highlighted and appreciated and properly compensated.
So I would ask, as a male, can I dance?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
You know what's crazy? A lot of the time, since there is a low number of male dancers, a lot of the times male dancers will get jobs faster than dancers who identify as women or female.
Okay. Okay. And so if you have 15 seconds to talk to the people, what would be your message?
Oh, 15 seconds?
Quick.
Making sure that you're taking care of your mental health and well-being while setting positive boundaries. Also, use your movement to say what you want to say, and come take class at KLJ Movement.
Oh, thank you, guys. My name is Patrick. I represent Midwest Vintage and Heavy 7 Hearts. Guys, please check her out. If your kid, from a boy to a girl, if they would like to dance, they would like to do a little bit of movement, TikTok is so, everybody got a little rhythm in them. Let's get them in the class, guys. Thank you, guys.